Hello, family and friends. Welcome back to another Coffee with Cody. Tonight we're going to wrap up the family tree by covering a little bit of the family history and heritage on my mom's side. My mother, Dorothy Ann DiGirolamo Cody, try to get that adjusted just right. She was born in Springfield, Illinois in 1935. Her parents were William Diamando DiGirolamo and Martha Geraldine Carney. And Grandpa Bill was born, I believe, in Italy and came over with his parents. Grandpa DiGirolamo was one of 5 siblings, I believe. There were 3 boys and 2 girls. His parents were Giovanni DiGirolamo, and his mother's name was Julia Valario. They were both born in Italy. They immigrated to the United States. I don't know the specific time frame. I don't know how many of the children were born in Italy and how many were born in the United States, or if even the case. But eventually, they came through, I want to say, Ellis Island on their way to Illinois. So they settled in the Springfield, Illinois area. A little bit about them. Giovanni, he was raised in northern Italy around Milan. They had a estate in a mountainside villa there in northern Italy, and great-grandma DiGirolamo, Julia, was raised farther to the south in Italy. And there's an old saying that the best Italian was the one that was born closest to Rome. Now, I don't know who won that fight or argument, but I do know that in the northern part of Italy, where great-grandpa DiGirolamo was, they made a dry wine, and in the southern part of Italy, where the grapes were better growing, they made a sweeter wine, and that was great-grandma DiGirolamo's forte. So one had a dry white wine, and the other had a sweet red wine, and that was a bone of contention as well. And a funny story about them, and I don't remember who told me or where it came from, but they used to get in little squabbles all the time, and it was always heard that Grandpa DiGirolamo was always saying, "I'm going to get a divorce. I'm going to get a divorce." That one always has stuck with me for a long, long time, and I'll never forget it. Grandpa DiGirolamo and Grandma Martha were divorced, I think, when Mom was maybe 8 or 9, somewhere in that area. And there was some hanky-panky going on, I guess you would say. And Grandpa DiGirolamo ended up with a second wife and 3 other children. He had a daughter by the name of 4 children. He had 3 daughters. First one's name was Janice. The second one was Madeline, and then there was Kathleen, and the youngest was Bill Jr. So Mom actually had 4 step siblings, and we do have cousins on that side of the family, first cousins by blood. I guess half-blood you would call them, step cousins or whatever. But we've only very, very rarely touched base with that family. I can remember, back in the maybe '69, Grandma McClernon, who was remarried at the time, and I'll tell you how that came about. She picked Tracy and I up, and we went back to Springfield, Illinois, on a little trip to see the Carney cousins, and also she allowed us to see Grandpa DiGirolamo, and that's when we met the other side of the family. Janice, Madeline, Kathleen, and Bill Jr. They were out of high school by then, so we just maybe said hi very briefly. But I do remember his place, Grandpa DiGirolamo's place in Springfield. He was a collector of Impalas, and I can remember about 2 or 3 Impalas that he had in his driveway. So he was a car aficionado. And then at the same time, we also met Aunt Clara and Aunt Julia, and then Uncle Glad and Uncle John, who were Grandpa DiGirolamo's siblings. And we went to, I think, a picnic or not horse races, but drag races. They were drag racers. There was mechanics in a family. So those are vivid memories that I have. Not really vivid, but vague. I mean, I still remember things about it. But one of the funniest things from that time, Grandpa DiGirolamo took Tracy and I into Little Italy in Springfield. It was like the Italian section of Springfield, Illinois. And we went to a bar, I remember, and Tracy and I, along with Grandpa, we ordered a pizza and ended up having a couple of Italian sub sandwiches each, and about 7 bottles of 7-Up while we were watching the Cubs and the Cardinals game. And that's a big rivalry back there between Illinois and Missouri. They're right on the border. St. Louis is very close, so you were either a Cubs fan or a Cardinal fan. And of course, Grandpa was a Cardinal fan, and so we were watching baseball there at the bar. And after we got done, the bartender says to Grandpa DiGirolamo, "Well, I'll tell you, Diamando, those 2 boys can sure eat, and the 7-Up's on me." So that's another one that I'll never ever forget for as long as I live. I can also tell you about Grandpa DiGirolamo, and I'll call her Grandma Pat because we did whenever we saw her. She didn't always come out to Wolf Point, but Grandpa used to take the train out to Wolf Point to see us on several occasions. And he was good for always bringing Italian candy and cookies. He was a baker, and he made the best Italian cookies, cantellini's, and there was another one that tasted like licorice. I don't remember what they called it, but he always brought plenty of Italian candy with him and cookies, and we had those for a couple of weeks probably after he returned. But my last memory of Grandpa DiGirolamo was he passed away in 1972, my senior year, during football season, and I went with Mom back to his funeral in Springfield. And so that was the last time I was able to see my DiGirolamo cousins and step aunt and uncles. Was at Grandpa DiGirolamo's funeral. We really haven't had a whole lot of contact with them. I did make contact with Janice at one time, The youngest daughter, Kathleen, actually came to Mom's funeral, so she came out to Wolf Point for a while. And then I also made contact with Kathleen's daughter, Shelley Peethy is her name, through 23andMe and Ancestry.com. We made some contact there, and we've stayed in touch a little bit. But that's so much for the Italian side of our family. Mom's mother, Grandma Martha, was probably more familiar to the people in Wolf Point because she spent a lot of time there after my grandfather, Grandpa McClernand, step-grandfather, of course, but grandfather nonetheless, passed away in I want to say 85. After he passed away, Grandma moved to Wolf Point and lived there for, quite a few years with Mom. In fact, she went to the legislature and lived with Mom on several occasions for several of those sessions. And then eventually moved back to Illinois to be closer to the relatives back there. And eventually came back to Wolf Point, and she passed away in Wolf Point in 1995. But a lot of people around the Wolf Point area remember my grandma Martha McClernand, and she was a real character too, just like my mother. They were two chips off the old block. And Mom, like I said, was an only child. Grandpa McClernand and Grandma Martha McClernand never did have any children other than raising Mom, and so they were the grandparents that we knew the best and the most on Mom's side, especially the younger brothers and sisters, because Grandma was at 95, I think Dennis graduated in 91, so there was enough years there with Grandma McClernand that they got to at least know her. Not so much on Dad's side with Grandpa Ed, because he died in 58, and then after Dad passed away, Grandma Cody moved out to California, so our siblings didn't get to see her a whole lot, especially the younger ones. A little bit about Grandma McClernand and her roots. Her father's name was John Carney, and her mother's name was Elizabeth Irene Sheedy. And Grandma, I believe, Grandma McClernand was born in Indiana. I'll have a little story to tell about Indiana here in a second, and eventually how they ended up in Springfield, Illinois. But Grandpa Sheedy Grandpa Carney and Grandma Sheedy were both Irish. I'm not so sure that they were born in Ireland, but I do know that their parents came to the United States through New Orleans. They came up the Mississippi, eventually settling in the St. Louis area, and then from there the family migrated out to Indiana, and I don't know if that's where great grandma and great grandpa Carney were married, but I do know that at least several of the siblings of Grandma McClernand were born in Indiana. And Grandpa Carney was a farmer out in Indiana. And around the turn of the century, Indiana was well known, and if you want to do some research and document it, it was one of the northern states that was heavily populated with the KKK. A lot of their politicians and people in charge of the government in Indiana were members of the KKK. In fact, there's some stories about how eventually those politicians ended up in D.C. So if you want to do a little research on the Ku Klux Klan, and especially that chapter that was related to the Indiana area, you might want to check that out. But one of the stories that Grandma McClernand told, if you'll recall, I told you that we sat her down and recorded her for a couple hours. One of the stories that came out of there was that their family, being Irish Catholic, Catholics were not too well liked by members of the KKK. And they ended up getting a cross burned in their yard. And I don't know how much more harassment they had or discrimination they experienced, but eventually they moved from Indiana out to Illinois in the Springfield area. And that's where Grandma McClernand and Grandpa DiGirolamo ended up meeting. Grandma McClernand was born in 1912. I don't know if I mentioned that Grandpa DiGirolamo was born in 1914. Grandma McClernand again had two brothers, John and Jimmy Carney, and then two sisters, Margaret, and they called her Toots, but her name was, Lucille. Lucille. She went by Aunt Tootsie. That's all we knew her by, but her real name was Lucille. And Grandma McClernand had just the one child. Grandpa John, or not Grandpa John, but Great Uncle John had the daughter, Billy Rose Carney. James and his wife, Grace, Aunt Grace, had a son, Michael Carney. Michael was the youngest out of all of the cousins. There was, Mom was the oldest, then, Billy Rose. Uncle John's and Aunt Viv's daughter, Billy Rose, was the oldest by a year, older than Mom. She was born in 1911. And Michael was quite a bit younger than them. But Aunt Tootsie and her husband, Jerry Jordan, farmed in Farmersville, Illinois, which was south of Springfield. I don't know exactly how far it was. John was a miner that worked in the Peabody mines. He was a mine boss. And then Jimmy, I think, was in the insurance business, but I'm not real sure for sure. But anyway, those cousins all grew up fairly close and tight until they moved, till Mom and Grandma McClernand and Grandpa Pat McClernand moved to San Diego. I want to say in the early 50s. Mom did her senior year out there because she went through a Catholic school in Springfield all the way to her junior year. Sacred Heart was the name of that academy that they went to. Billy Rose went there with her as well. But anyway, Grandpa McClernand was a bricklayer, and he got work out in the San Diego area, and eventually became the business agent for the Bricklayers Union, and Grandma McClernand was the secretary there. So that's how they ended up out in San Diego, and that's where Mom eventually met Dad. Mom graduated in 1954. Dad was in the service out there. I don't remember what year he started in the service. He graduated from Wolf Point in 49. And Mom and Dad were married in 54. Mom graduated it would have been June of 54, and they were married in Springfield in October of 1954. And then I was the first one that started the clan of all of us. the 11 of us, in September of '55. So that was quite a journey there. And I will tell you this, if it had not been for my grandparents, Martha and Patrick McClernand, our Christmases and birthdays and things like that would not have been as good as they were. A lot of my siblings may not have known that, but they loved us dearly and made sure that we had good Christmases. We also had good birthdays. So those are memories that I will never ever forget. Even when we were in the bar business and experienced some tough times, they helped us out a little bit there as well. So my love and blessings go out to my grandparents, Pat and Martha McClernand. So Mom basically was half Irish and half Italian. Dad, as we know, was mostly Irish with a little bit of French mixed in, and I believe some English blood in there, with some of the heritage traced on his side of the family. That's basically what I want to tell you as far as the roots of our family go. So how we ended up in Wolf Point? Well, after the wedding in '54, they loaded up the truck and they didn't move to Beverly, but they moved to Wolf Point, Montana. And Mom had been a city girl all her life, growing up in Springfield and then in San Diego. So I don't know if she was quite ready for the adventure that she was going to go on, but she became part of Montana. She became part of Wolf Point, and was well known throughout the land, just like Dad was. He spent 11 years as a sheriff and was well known, and was actually politically connected to the Montana Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. So they were both politically connected. Not afraid to say it, a proud Democrat for all these years. Go blue. It's not about being liberal or conservative, or it's about a philosophy, and we just believe that that philosophy that we grew up with has served us well over the years, and we continue to believe that. So there you know a little bit about my politics. With that, I think I'm going to close this session. Coming up in the future sessions, I think I will take all the life and times of Leo and Dorothy separate. We'll talk a little bit about them growing up and some of the things that they experienced. Maybe some jobs that I was aware of that they did, some schooling that they did, so that you better know where all of the Codys came from through their parents. So with that, I think we'll call this session a good one, and Coffee with Cody signing out.